writes down the move on the score sheet. Sanan drew his game against Predke in round 1 while Eljanov won. So this is going to be an important game for both the players, but more so for Eljanov, who might want to win another game and really have a great start to this super strong event. D5 played by Sanan, and now Pavel, what is he going to play? He goes G3, so he's going for the Reti system, very safe and solid, and Sanan plays his knight to F6. This is the standard way in which Black responds against the Reti. You go E6, Bishop E7 and castle. That's one way to play, but there's also another way to play, and which is perhaps more solid, and that is C6. This is preferred by the Slav players because with this you are keeping your bishop open. Castles by White. In fact, White has just in 4 moves developed all his pieces and castled here. So it's a very safe opening. Bishop G4 played by Sanan, and his point is that he wants to keep the bishop outside the pawn chain and then play E6. H3 played, questioning the bishop, and the bishop goes back to H5. And now how do you continue? You go G4, Knight E5. Few ideas are there in the air. There's also a possibility to hit the center with C4, but Pavel plays the very solid D3. Okay, so D3 is a normal way to play in this position. Sanan goes E6, and Pavel hits the center with C4. So Black can just stay steady, but Sanan decides to take on C4, and this leads to a very interesting position because now White has more space because of the C4 pawn, but at the same time Black's position is very comfortable. He goes Knight D7, and that shows a bit of ambition there because he could have traded the queens, but rather than that he preferred to put his knight on D7, and now Knight C3 is played by Pavel and queen comes to C7. He goes bishop to F4, and with this move he is provoking E5 because otherwise the queen is not very comfortably placed there. E5 played, and now the bishop has to move away. So has provoking E5 benefited White? Well, there are pros and cons. One of the big pros here is that the knight can go to H4 and look at the F5 square that is slightly weakened here. Bishop C5 played by Sanan, and he was well prepared until now. As you can see on the clock, he has 1 hour 32 minutes while Pavel is down to 1 hour 9 minutes. Knight takes on C5. Amazing opening prep here by Sanan. The position is around equal. B4 played, and with this maybe the knight will jump back to E6. Yes, he plays his knight to E6 looking at the D4 and F4 squares. Here queen goes to C1 and Black just castles it out. Knight comes to D2, and this is a very nice move because you want to put your knight on E4, C5 and D6, or you want to play C5, knight C4 and knight D6. Sanan just hits the queen side with A5, and White goes A3, just defending against Black's play there. Take. So if White is able to successfully execute B5 plan, that's one of the plans, or C5 and knight C4 plan, then would be doing really well. For now, queen B6 played, putting pressure on B4, and queen comes to B2 to defend it, and now Sanan takes the open A file with rook 8. So very calm, cool positional chess going on. Pavel goes rook C1, just improving his rook, maybe a better square than before, and now comes slightly provocative move, queen A6. The idea is that you keep an eye on the C4 pawn. So e3 played by Pavel just to stop the knight from coming here. And now bishop g6. This is a good move because the bishop was not so well placed. And now knight f3. Very important to note that queen takes c4 is met with bishop f1, and if bishop d3 there is knight e5 and white wins. So firstly knight d7 is played, and now rook to d1, hitting the knight here, and a very good move here, knight ef8, keeping the e5 pawn control. If you look at the time on the clock, Eljanov is down to 5 minutes while Sanan has 20 minutes. Queen takes c4. He's given up a pawn. Wow, he's gone knight h4. He's given a pawn up, and now is that enough compensation or has he just missed something? Let's see. Knight takes, pawn takes, and now places bishop to f1 and asks Sanan, where are you going with your queen? You don't have any of these squares. Sanan quietly puts his queen back on e6, and Pavel goes knight e4. His idea could be knight d6 followed by bishop c4 or knight c5, knight g5. Many possibilities are there. So firstly he goes knight b6, stopping bishop c4 ideas in future as well. But now the knight goes to the other side of the board. Very fighting chess by Pavel Eljanov here. Queen e7 played to defend the queen and also to attack the knight. The knight, instead of moving, is defended with h4. And I like Sanan's next move, knight h7, because with this he's trading the active piece of Pavel. Knight takes h7, king takes h7, and it's not so easy for white to prove the compensation for the missing pawn. So have to be careful. Ooh, b5. I don't like this move. Actually, I find this move to be not at all great, mainly because after c5 here, which is what Sanan does, fantastic chess, he has a clear passed pawn here. This pawn cannot be stopped. Let's see how useful that pawn proves to be. Queen c2, e4 played here by Pavel, and now you can see that this is blocked, so h5 no longer is that strong. He plays queen d2. He wants to come in here to d6, and Sanan sets a trap. He allows the queen to come to d6, but this is what Pavel has missed. A big mistake here, and now you can see how Sanan is going to take advantage of this. He first takes on d6, rook takes. Now the knight is hanging, so logical would be to move the knight, but then the rook comes to d7, but Sanan plays c4, fantastic move, and now even c3. And the point is the bishop can no longer stop it because of this pawn, and the rook cannot stop it because of the b pawn. So big trouble here for Pavel Eljanov. Rook c8, very nice move, stopping the rook taking this file, and now threatening to play c2, c1. Rook goes to a7, pawn is pushed to c2, the rook comes back to a1, and now Sanan makes a queen, and the resulting position is such that here there are some drawing chances, but with accurate play it seems like Sanan should convert this into a win. Firstly king g2 to break the pin, and now maybe king g8 to f8 to this plan could be a good idea just to activate the king, but instead Sanan goes g5. This is not a great idea. Take king g6. He wants to win the g5 pawn, but now a very strong move is to play b6. Did he play it? Yes, he did. b6, fantastic move by Pavel Eljanov. He's trying to make a queen, and you don't go rook b1 because bishop c4 here and bishop d5. This is a draw. So that's the reason why rook c6, a fantastic move found here by Sanan. Rook c6 was really a tough move, and his point is that now if you try to do the same trick, I can defend both my weaknesses f7 and e4 with rook e7. So that's the reason why he went bishop a6, trying to cling on to the pawn, but king takes g5 played by Sanan, and he's slowly and steadily connecting all the material. E takes f3, king takes f3, and now both the white pawns are slightly weakened, The rook is active. Yes, the white pawn is just away, one square away from queening, but king f5, it's not going anywhere. The rook is firmly stopping it. Bishop d3 check played, king comes to e5, and now the b7 pawn is hanging. You need to defend it. The bishop can go back to a6, but then the black king also goes and picks up, tries to stop the pawn, but bishop e4 is the final error, and f5 found here by Sanan. And after bishop c6, he goes king d6. The bishop has run out of squares on the long diagonal, and the b7 pawn is falling. So rook b8, here bishop e8, and now rook takes b7 is to be played. Yeah, he takes the pawn, and this is all over. Nothing much happening here. King to f4, trying to attack the pawn on f5, but you go just king e6. Fantastic move. King f6 up next. g5 is possible. Only thing you have to care about is the fact that yes, e4 you don't just take it, because if you take it, king takes, that seems closer to a draw. But rook b4 is such a nice move because he controls the e4 pawn and does not let it get exchanged. King goes to f6 now, threatening g5 ideas. So king goes back. Black doesn't want to take on e4, nor does he want to allow white to take here. But this is the solution. First a check, king f2, and maybe a few more checks is possible. Let's see how Sanan converts this. First attacks the bishop. The bishop has to move, and it goes to a8, just on the side of the board. And what is Sanan going to do next? Well, he plays his rook to b8. He's trying to gain some time. He's down to his last minute on the clock, but also he's thinking about what is the way in which he can make progress. In comes a check. The king moves up, and now he gives rook check. He goes rook c2. He attacks the bishop. Okay, if you play bishop d5, maybe king e5 is just curtains. So he goes bishop b7, and now the rook comes to c7. So in a way, if bishop a8 seems like a forced idea, but now it's over. It's over because rook c3 check, and notice how king f4 is met with g5 mate, and so king has to move back. Eljanov trying to think for one final time to see if he has any tricks left, and now what Sanan can do is slowly bring his king here. And once he does that, the g pawn will fall. So let's say after ef5, which is what Pavel does, now king g4, you first capture the g3 pawn, and then later on slowly capture the f5 pawn. That's how you are able to win this. Very, very clinical play here by Sanan Sjugirov. And Pavel Eljanov, who played fairly well yesterday as well as today, resigns the game